Hi guys, Shabbat Shalom. Um, I know it's been a long time since you've seen me. It's been rather busy here, but and it's not getting any better. I'll talk about that a little bit at the end if I remember. But I wanted to jump on here and share something with you um, that the Father's been speaking to me about. And I hope you enjoy what I'm going to show you. I know I certainly enjoyed it when he showed it to me. So I'm going to go away and we're going to get right to it. Going to bring up the PowerPoint. So the thing I want to share with you today is what I have been shown about Zechariah 5, 5 through 10, verses 5 through 10. I read a book by a certain gentleman that had believed that this was not a woman in a basket, but a fire in a basket. And it was like nuclear attack coming out of Babylon or Syria, or I don't even actually remember. I tried to read the book back then, and it didn't resonate with me. But I want to share with you something today that I think will resonate with you. I know it resonates with me because it fits the pattern and the understanding of Scripture here that we are given about the feasts and about the timing of the feasts and even about the calendar. You know, the longer I study the Scripture and the longer I walk out the calendar on an annual basis, the more I'm convinced that if you don't understand the foundation, which is Torah, and the thing that Elohim gave the people to obey, if you don't understand that foundation from an elemental level, from a ground level perspective, there's a lot of it that just goes by, and I know for me has been missed and continues to be missed until in his loving mercy and graciousness to us, he makes that connection on the earth and in his patterns. So there were three women in baskets, and we're going to take a look at that today. The vision of the flying scroll, Zechariah 5:1. Then I turned and lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a flying roll. And he said unto me, What seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roll, and the length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof is 10 cubits. Then he said unto me, This is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. For every one that stealeth shall be cut off as on this side according to it, and every one that sweareth shall be cut off on the other side according to it. And I will bring it forth, saith the Lord of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief, and into the house of him that sweareth falsely by my name. And it shall remain in the midst of the house, and shall consume it with the timber thereof and the stones thereof. Then the angel talked with me. Then the angel that talked with me went forth and said unto me, Lift up now thine eyes and see what is it that goeth forth. And I said, What is it? And he said, It is an ephah that goeth forth. And he said, Moreover, this is their resemblance in all of the earth. And behold, there was lifted up a talent of lead. And this is a woman that sitteth in the midst of the ephah. And he said, This is wickedness. And he cast it into the midst of the ephah, and he cast the weight of lead upon the mouth thereof. Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, and there came two women, and there came out two women. And the wind was in their wings, for they had wings like unto the wings of a stork that lifted up the ephah between the earth and heaven. Then I said to the angel that talked with me, Whither do these bear the ephah? And he said unto me, To build a house in the land of Shinar, and it shall be established and set up on her base. So that's our text today, okay? But I need to review some things that I've already shown you because Zechariah 5 supports what I've already shared with you. And you're going to see gives you a spiritual understanding of a literal event. I hope you will be able to see this because it's the same understanding that I've already brought to you. So going back to the very beginning, Genesis 2:4, and I apologize, I posted this earlier, but after I posted it, this thing just kept snowballing. So some of this is going to be review of what you may have read today, but we're going to go past that. First, I want to go through this again so that we can go past it to our verse in Zechariah 5. So Genesis 2:4, these are the generations of heaven, the heavens supply rain, and of earth, when they were created in the day that the Lord God made the heaven and the earth and the heavens. And every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord had not caused it to rain, that's heaven, upon the earth, and there was no man to till the earth. So, what we have been told here is again about the seed that was in the earth before the 6 days of creation. Actually, I see these as the 6 days of setting order to the earth that was without form and void, that was tohu vabohu. Okay, whether you believe it became tohu vabohu or it was created in tohu vabohu, the 6 days were putting things that served the earth and furnished the earth into a specific order. Before the 6 days of furnishing the earth, Yud He Vav He, and I'm going to get into the reason I've gone back to saying Yud He Vav He towards the end of the video. Yud He Vav He established the principle of the seed from the earth, the Adamah, a very specific term. Elohim took man, Adam, very specific term, very specific pattern. I encourage you, I'm going to do this several times throughout the presentation today, for you to do a word study on Adamah and follow it through and understand that this applies literally to the barley and the wheat, which grew from the soil. So from the soil, from the dust, from the Adamah, Elohim took Adam as the first seed of humanity, giving the principle that he and he alone gives and brings forth life. Should we question Genesis 1:1, which tells us of an earlier independent day from the 6 days of creation? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was tohu vabohu, without form and void. And darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Genesis 2:9 tells us that out of the ground made Elohim to grow every tree that was pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He and he alone brings forth life. So if we believe his words to be verbatim, then we should believe the Mashiach. In Mark 4:26, he said, "So is the kingdom of heaven, as if a man should cast a seed into the Adamah, and should sleep and rise night and day, and the seed should spring up and grow. He knoweth not how, for the earth bringeth forth fruit of herself, first the blade, then the ear, and after the full corn in the ear. And when the fruit is brought forth, immediately he putteth in the sickle, because the harvest of the fruit, or that fruit, has come." So another verse in Hosea 2:9, or verses I want us to look at, is what it says about the heavens and the earth. It says, "For I have betrothed thee unto me forever. Yea, I will betroth thee unto me in righteousness and in judgment and in loving kindness and in mercies. I will even betroth thee unto me in faithfulness, and thou shalt know the Lord. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will hear, saith the Lord, I will hear," which is Anah, answer the heavens, "and they shall hear, Anah, answer the earth, and the earth shall hear, Anah, answer the corn," which is the barley and the wheat, the wine and the oil, "and they shall hear the corn, the wine, and the oil, Anah, and answer Jezreel," who is Israel, "and I will sow her, Israel, unto me in the Adamah, and I will have mercy on her that has not obtained mercy. And I will say to them which are not my people, thou art my people, and thou shalt say, thou art my God. I'm sorry, I did misspeak. In these passages, the word is not Adamah, it's Eretz, which is a different thing. So the principle of the seed, as we can now understand from Hosea and the rest of the scriptures, Hosea, is that people are as seeds of grain, barley, and or wheat. From humanity, Elohim would bring us a redeemer, one specific seed that could restore what was broken by the first Adam, a natural male seed of Adam, who was Yeshua, called the last Adam. So throughout the scriptures, we have been painted a mental image of generations of people, of humanity from the time of Adam, coming to life, being born, and passing away in what the Bible calls a death or a sleep, a physical sleep in death. I know we've looked at these verses so many times, but we cannot go around them without looking at them again, so that we have this sure foundation for understanding our text. Psalms 102:11, my days are like a shadow that declineth. I am withered like grass. Psalms 103:15, as for man, his days are as grass, as a flower of the field, so he flourishes. 1 Peter 1:24, for all flesh is as grass, and the glory of man as the flower of grass. The grass withereth, and the flower thereof fadeth away. Imagine the gospel story is realized by the seed that was in the earth on the day that Elohim created the heaven and the earth. Can you now understand this verse in the book of Revelation? I'm not trying to be cheeky, but these patterns are the bones, the skeleton for the meat of understanding, the meat of the word of Elohim. Revelation 9:4, and it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree. I'm telling you, the first fruits of the earth and the first fruits of the trees right here in Revelation. But those men which are not sealed of God in their forehead. Did you catch that? The grass of the earth, the trees of the earth, the grass of the Adamah, the trees of the earth, the Eretz, are those that have been sealed, those that have picked up the characteristics of the first fruits, the characteristics of our beloved Mashiach. Those men who did not reflect his characteristics, they did not have the seal of God in their forehead. There was no tannish, whitish, unleavened barley standing in a field about to drop in this verse, or wheat here. We have to be green and pliable and full of the life of the living Yud He Vav He. Revelation 4:3, and he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and sardine stone, and there was a rainbow round about the throne, in the sight like unto an emerald. Green is the color of emerald. People are the multitude that are around his throne. Deuteronomy 32:1, give ear, O you heaven, and I will speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. This reads rather like we read in Hosea, doesn't it? And in Genesis 2:4 and 5. My doctrine shall fall as rain. My speech shall distill as dew, as small rain upon the tender herb, and as showers upon the grass. Because I will publish the name of the Lord. Ascribe you greatness to our Lord. Before the fall, the earth was covered in a mist or a dew. It was covered with the knowledge of Yah. It says in Genesis 2:6, but there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the earth. Jehovah Yud-He-Vav-He, he plants, he waters, he brings forth the seed. He never gave the understanding in the start of the calendar to be the ceasing of rain. Yah forbid, may his word to us never cease. He never gave authority to the sun, moon, or stars to start the calendar. Life is in his hands and his alone. Blessed be the name of Yud-He-Vav-He forever and ever. If we are as unleavened barley in this current life, in this realm, in this existence right now, then we have kept the testimony of Yeshua and the commandments of Yud-He-Vav-He. Then, when we fall to the earth as aging barley in our death sleep, what will rise by the quickening power of the Ruach will be the earnest, the seed of wheat that we received when we received Yeshua as our Mashiach and follow on in obedience. This term Adumah has been dedicated to use when it speaks of barley and wheat. I'm going to leave it for you to make a dedicated word study of Adumah to prove it's only used in conjunction with grains. It was first used when Adam fell. Genesis 3:17, and unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the Adumah for thy sake. In sorrow thou shalt eat of it all the days of thy life. Deuteronomy 26:1 tells us about taking a first fruit in a basket and giving it to the priest to be offered to Elohim on our behalf. Let's look at that passage. And it shall be when thou art come into the land, the Eretz, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance, and possess it, and dwellest therein, that thou shalt take the first, the reshit of all the fruit of the Adumah, which thou shalt bring of thy Eretz, thy land, that the Lord thy God giveth thee, and shall put it in a basket, and go unto the place which the Lord thy God shall choose to place his name there. And thou shalt go unto the priest that shall be in those days, and say unto him, I profess this day unto the Lord thy God, that I am come into the country which the Lord sware unto our fathers to give us. And the priest shall take the basket out of thy hand, and shall set it down before the altar of the Lord thy God. Then thou shalt speak and say before the Lord thy God, a Syrian ready to perish was my father, and he went down into Egypt and sojourned there with a few, and became there a nation, great, mighty, and populous. And the Egyptians did evil and treat us and afflict us, and laid upon us hard bondage. And when we cried unto the Lord our God, the Lord heard our voice and looked upon our affliction and our labor and our oppression. And the Lord brought us forth out of Egypt with a mighty hand, with an outstretched arm, and with great terribleness, with signs and wonders. And he hath brought us into this place, and hath given us this land, even a land that floweth with milk and with milk and honey. That didn't grab those last two words. I apologize. So which grain was to be placed in a basket? We know we have two pre-adobas, fruit of the earth. But which one was it? Was it barley or was it wheat? Well, the scripture is actually going to tell us the command for the first fruits of wheat was to bring 11 loaves of wheat for Shavuot. Shavuot was not a grain offering. It was a leavened wheat bread offering from the first dough of the people. Leviticus 23:17, and you shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2 tins steel, and they shall be of fine flour. They shall be baken with leaven. They are first fruits unto the Lord. Numbers 15:21, the first of thy dough you shall give unto the Lord, a heave offering in your generations. The first leavened dough from the people, or of the people, from the populace, made up the 2 leavened loaves at Shavuot. To this day, it is a Jewish custom to burn a piece of Friday night bread called challah, which is leavened wheat bread. By burning this piece of dough, it is a form of offering it. The command of the first fruits barley was a meat or a meal or flour offering of grains. And if thy oblation be a meat offering bacon in a frying pan, it shall be made of fine flour with oil. And thou shalt bring the meat offering that is made of these things into the Lord. And when it is presented unto the priest, he shall bring it into the altar. And the priest shall take from the meat offering a memorial thereof, and it shall be burnt upon the altar, an offering made by fire, a sweet savor unto the Lord. And that which is left of the meat offering shall be Aaron's and his sons. It is a thing most holy of offerings unto the Lord made by fire. No meat offering, which ye shall bring unto the Lord, shall be made with leaven. So no grain offering shall be made with leaven. For ye shall burn no leaven, nor any honey, in any offering of the Lord made by fire. As for the oblation of the first fruits, same as before, same as above, you shall offer them unto the Lord, but they shall not be burnt on the altar for a sweet savor. It was barley that was placed in baskets. Thou shalt take the first, the reshith, the beginning of all the fruit of the earth, adamah, which thou bring into thy land, the eretz that Elohim giveth thee, and shall put it in a basket, and shall go into the place where the Lord shall choose to place his name there. This is the actual verse in Hebrew, and this is what it says verbatim in Hebrew. And to take from the beginning of all the fruit, the adamah, which to go from the eretz, which Elohim your God gave to you, and to put in a basket, and to go to the place which is chosen to place his name in it. It literally says to take from the beginning of all the fruit of the Adamah, which comes out of the earth, which Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, your Elohim, gave to you, and to put it in a basket, and to go to a specific place that he had chosen to put his name in. Barley in a basket. Remember, barley represents our lives in this realm. Do we have the leaven of sin, or are we unleavened by the world? Well, that's just a lead-in for Zechariah 5 and the woman in the basket, I must confess. There were 3 women in the basket. Zechariah 23:2, Son of man, there were 2 women, the daughter of one mother. This is how we understand Zechariah 5. They committed whoredoms in Egypt. They committed whoredoms in their youth. They were there, their breasts were pressed, and they bruised the teats of their virginity. And the names of them were Aholah, the elder, and Aholibah, the sister. They were mine, and they bare sons and daughters. Thus were their names. Samaria is Aholah, and Jerusalem is Aholibah. Zechariah 5:7, a woman that sitteth in the midst of the ephah. She was the mother, the one that left Egypt. Zechariah 5:9, there came out 2 women, Aholah and Aholibah, Samaria and Jerusalem. The 3 women were, again, the woman that left Egypt, and the 2 daughters of the divided northern and southern kingdoms. Deuteronomy 26:4, and the priest shall take the basket of thine hand and set it down before the altar of the Lord thy God. By offering their first fruits in a basket, it was an act of acknowledging. By offering their first fruits of barley in a basket, it was an act of acknowledging their position of being set apart and belonging to Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. Even though we understand who the woman represented, we still need more information to understand the passage. A blessed basket. Deuteronomy 28, and it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all of his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God shall set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all of these blessings shall come upon thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Blessed shalt thou be in the city, blessed shalt thou be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body. Blessed shall be the free of thy Adamah, and the fruit of thy cattle, and the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of thy sheep. Blessed shall be thy basket and thy store. A cursed basket. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all of his commandments and his statute, which I command thee this day, that these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, cursed shalt thou be in the field, cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Elohim chose two phrases to make clear the word picture he was painting: a blessed life or a cursed life, a blessed basket with an omer of barley, or a cursed basket with an omer of barley. Back to Zechariah now. The weight of lead. That word weight is the word evan, meaning a stone. It comes from the root word banah, to build, and it's correctly used in the passage we're looking at. The first house, the house that began in Egypt was destroyed as lead in the sea. Now, if you've listened to my teachings, I show that we can trace covenant back to Adam. So in the very beginning, Mitzrayim, which is Egypt, was under the covenant through his father Noah. Later on, the Amorites replaced the Egyptians, the people of Mitzrayim. Elohim says to Abraham, when he parts the animals and makes the covenant with them, that his seed would go down to Egypt for 300 years because the iniquity of the Amorites were not yet full. So the house that began in Egypt was destroyed as lead in the sea. Thou didst blow with thy wind, the sea covered them, they sank as lead in the mighty waters. Lead is tied with cursing. Deuteronomy 28:3. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be as brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be as iron. The Lord shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven it shall come down upon thee, till thou shalt be destroyed. Now, this is just after the passage in Deuteronomy 28, where he talked about if you don't obey, then your basket is going to be cursed. So we see this symbolism as a heaven of brass and an earth of iron. But where does this lead come from? Just within, I don't know, I think less than 2 years ago, Aaron Lipkin headed another search through the debris from Mount Ebal from when Adam Zertel originally excavated the area. We have more technology today than they had back in that day. I think it was in the 80s. I don't quote me on the year, but Adam Zertel has passed away. So it was some time ago. And we have more technology and equipment now. And they did a wet sifting where they went back and they got permission to collect the rubble that had come out of the excavation of Joshua's altar. And what they found on Mount Ebal, where Joshua's altar was erected, which let's just speak briefly about that situation. The children of Israel were placed on Har Barucha and Mount Ebal, or Har Egal, and the blessings and the cursings were spoken. From Ebal, they spoke the curses, and they set up the altar. Now, we don't need an altar of sacrifice on Har Barucha, because if we're obedient, we're not under a curse. But if we sin, or if we have iniquity, then we need the altar to cover those things. So therefore, from Ebal, the Mount of Cursing, they set the altar up. They discovered this lead tablet. It's a folded lead tablet. This is what was written on the tablet. Cursed, 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 cursed by God. And there were only 3 consonants, Yud, He, Vav. You will die cursed. Cursed, you will surely die. Cursed by Yud, He, Vav. Cursed, cursed, cursed. Do you see the chiasm? It points to you will die cursed. You will surely die. This was found on the Mount of Cursing, Mount Ebal, where the altar was erected for sins of ignorance and sins of ignorance and transgressions. In our passage in Zechariah, the nation had become as lead stones or cursed stones. The stone, the Evan, that was to be the building material, the Banah of Elohim as a holy nation. They had cursed themselves. They had failed in fidelity to Elohim. They had broken their covenant with him, which are his laws they gave them to obey. Now, an omer is a 10th part of an ephah. So 1 ephah equals 10 omer. I find it interesting that the basket had an ephah of barley, which is 10 omers. 10 is the number of the 10 commandments or the 10 sayings. It is the very thing the 3 women had failed to keep the covenant with the law of the commands. Back to the beginning of Zechariah. Let's see if we can understand it now. And then I turned and lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, a flying roll. The word in Hebrew is Megillah. It's a scroll. And he said unto me, What seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying scroll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 10 cubits. Israel's sins that brought curses upon them and the call to repentance were always recorded by the prophets, written in a book or a scroll. Then he said unto me, This is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. For every one that stealeth shall be cut off on this side according to it, and every one that sweareth shall be cut off on the other side according to it. We're going to see examples of these things recorded in books or scrolls. Malachi 3:7 says, Even from the days of your fathers you have gone away after mine ordinances and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you, saith the Lord of hosts. But you said, Wherein shall we return? Will a man rob God? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, Wherein have we robbed thee? In tithe and offerings. That was a portion of grain that was due to the temple. You are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even this whole nation. As far as the swearing falsely, we can look at Jeremiah 3:25. I have heard what the prophets said, that prophesy lies in my name, saying, I have dreamed, I have dreamed. How long shall this be in the heart of the prophets that prophesy lies? Yea, they are prophets of deceit of their own heart, which think to cause my people to forget my name by their dreams, which they tell every man to his neighbor, as their fathers have forgotten my name for Baal. Continuing in Zechariah, I will bring forth, saith the Lord of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief, and into the house of him that sweareth falsely by my name, and it shall remain in the midst of his house, and it shall consume it, and it shall consume with it the timber thereof and the stones thereof. Remember, this is about a lead stone, the stones that was Israel that were going to build a house to Elohim, a set apart nation. The stones are consumed. Then the angel of the Lord that talked with me went forth and said unto me, Lift up now thine eyes and see what is this that goeth forth. And I said, What is it? And he said, It is an ephah that goeth forth. And he said, Moreover, this is the resemblance throughout the earth. The abundant provision and wealth of Elohim was the resemblance of the nation of Israel in the beginning. An ephah is not what was commanded to go in the basket. It was an omer. The abundance of provision of Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh was how the people had been known. Zechariah 5:7, behold, there lifted up a stone of lead, and this woman that setteth in the midst of the ephah, as a cursed lead stone robbing from Elohim. That is the picture we have here, that Israel, that the first woman that came out of Egypt, that new nation, was as a cursed stone robbing from Elohim. And he said, this is wickedness. And he cast into the midst of the ephah, and he cast the stone of lead upon the mouth thereof. Then I lifted up my eyes, and what was on that lead stone from Ebal? Cursed, cursed, cursed of Jehovah. You shall surely die, cursed. Okay, do you get the picture of this? On that basket of barley that represented Israel, on the ephah, on the abundance Elohim had given them. Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, there came out two women, and the wind was in their wings, for they had the wings of a stork. And they lifted up the ephah between heaven, the earth and heaven. These two women were unclean by the virtue of the stork, and it's reinforced that they too robbed Elohim. Then I said to the angel that talked with me, whither do these bear the ephah? And he said unto me, to build Banah, a house in the land of Shinar, which is Babylon, and it will be raised up and rested upon a foundation. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I want to talk to you just a little bit, and I know I've said this before, about the writing on the scroll that has the sacred name. This script that you're looking at is called Proto-Alphabetic script. It actually predates Paleo-Hebrew, which is alphabetic. This is Proto-Alphabetic. Even though Paleo-Hebrew is still a bit pictographic, Proto-Alphabetic script that we're looking for is pre-alphabetic. And this is the 3 syllables that we see for the divine name, Yud, He, Vav. We know in the text we have from recent history that the sacred name has a Yud, He, Vav. I don't really have a bone to pick with how you pronounce the Yud, He, Vav. But as for me, I've quit trying to pronounce it because it just confirms in my spirit what I've always known. Having lived in 4 different countries now, the last being Israel, my home, my permanent home, I have witnessed how much the influence of other cultures can change a language. And the 2 poignant languages that I can point to are the Spanish spoke in the Republic of Panama and the Hebrew that's now spoken in Israel. So in order to express to you why I no longer pronounce Yud He Vav or Yud He Vav He, I want to tell you a true story about the English coming from the Republic of Panama. Many of you may know that there was a time when the United States military had control of the Panama Canal and had military bases all over that small isthmus of Panama. In fact, many of the Panamanian people during those years were employed by the military base, by I forget the name of the stores where the military could buy things. You know, they would bring supplies in and they could buy on the bases, the things from America. They were the gardeners. They were the housekeepers. And they were exposed to this English language for many, 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 many years. In fact, there's a story that when we moved from Panama to Guatemala, we took our maid that we employed, that we trusted very much, to help us in the first, I think, 6 weeks, set up in Guatemala. And when she arrived to Guatemala, she almost had to learn to speak Spanish again because her dialect of Spanish was very foreign to Guatemalan Spanish. In Panamanian Spanish, they frequently dropped the S's. And probably could be the influence of the English that was spoken in the day that the nation of Panama was developing. But nonetheless, there is a city as you leave Guatemala, as you leave Panama City, going across the Bridge of America into the interior, and it sits on the right-hand side of the road as you get off of the bridge, having left the city of Panama City. And the military personnel used to describe this area as being on the right-hand side of the bridge. As time progressed, the Panamanians who spoke Spanish begin to call this area by the name Onrahan. On the right-hand side, or on the right hand, became the name Onrahan. So what I'm saying to you is also, as we get more and more and more Jewish people returning to Israel from the nations of the world, they influence the way that even the modern Hebrew has been spoken. The resh, the R sound, used to come from the throat. The ein wasn't said on the tongue. It was said in the throat, agvanyot, guttural. The het comes from the throat. But the immigrants are changing the sound of Hebrew. In fact, sometimes when I run into an older person that was born here that still speaks with a more original accent and dialect, I have a hard time understanding any of their Hebrew words because it's not the Hebrew that you hear commonly now. It's changed that much. So when I look at this proto-alphabetic script with the Yud Hey Vav, it's not shocking to me. It doesn't alarm me. It simply enforces what I already knew, that we truly don't know how that name was pronounced. And we may not even know, even though we're looking at these 3 proto-alphabetic scripts of consonants that represent the sacred name as the Israelites who made it into the promised land understood it. And maybe that's the way they even had it when they were in Egypt. But I promise you, having been in Goshen, where the rest of the world were put into bondage under Pharaoh during the famine, where Joseph was the ruler, in second place only to Pharaoh, and people sold themselves to survive for lack of grain. I'll sell myself, feed me. I'll work for the Pharaoh, feed me. That the influence of these nations for 300 years, that even the Israelites then didn't pronounce the sacred name the way that Abraham would have pronounced the name. Again, Jehovah, Yahweh, Yahuwah, Yahweh, there's a million pronunciations out there. I don't care. We don't know. And you can honestly say it however you want. I won't be upset. But to those who are dogmatic and cut other people off and demand that they have the truth, I call your bluff. You don't have the truth. We don't have a 45 of the way that Abraham said the sacred name, which would have probably sounded more like his hometown of Ur than the Israelites that were in Egypt.